drugs and
Yeah.
and breaking all the rules. And then when she asks you about it, you don't tell her.
Yes.
Because sometimes the authorities in your life, they don't know anything.
But by the authorities, she doesn't mean the president of the United States. No. You should listen to that authority.
Exactly.
You should listen to.
No, by the authorities,
Roosevelt.
he means the legitimately constituted authorities.
Yeah, like your mom and dad and your church.
Don't listen to your mom and dad or your church or anything like that. You listen to these huckster figures like the Cat in the Hat or like Sam I Am or like President Roosevelt. They will come and they'll tell you the real things that you need to know. You're priming children. It's grooming children to be like to
be shitlibs, to be people who are performatively anti-authority.
But more generally than that, because that's not how like Inception works. It's priming them to be marks for people who will make them into shitlibs later.
Yes,
you will not read Dr. Seuss and come away a shitlib, but you will read Dr. Seuss and come away like ready and primed for when one of those people starts to feed these things to you to fall right into the trap. It's
all they got to tell you is
children.
Like, hey, you know what? Hey, kids, you know what's really radical and cool? Supporting the Tennessee Valley Authority and the War Planning Administration, man. Hey, you know what real rebels support? The Agricultural Adjustment Act, bro. Right? The Japanese internment camp, dude. Right? That's how you really stick it to your mom. And again, that someone might be listening to this and think, Marcel and Dan, you've gone on this weird unhinged rant about Dr. Seuss and it's really funny and I think you're dumb. That's fine. But for everybody who's kind of been living on Earth for the last, 2-3 years, when I tell you Dr. Seuss, in his own words, is, quote, subversive as hell. When I tell you Dr. Seuss works with communists, when I tell you that Dr. Seuss spent his free time, his professional hours, calling conservatives Nazis and anti-Semites and racists and trying to get their newspapers like the Chicago Tribune canceled, right? And by canceled, I mean shut down by the state. You should just listen to me. Actually, you dear listener, should just listen to me, what I say, and accept that this is fact, right? I'll tell you what's really subversive, listening to me. Yeah. If you want to be a real rebel, do what I say and listen to my perspective.
Well, Dr. Seuss is this sort of Pope Francis figure who does that same thing. He says, hey, what's really subversive and cool, succumbing is like bowing down for the liberal establishment.
Speaking of bowing down to the liberal establishment, we're not doing. Now we start with Democrat news. We were going on for an hour? Now we talk about the Democrats. Marjorie Taylor Greene is being attacked on 2 fronts. This actually on 3 fronts. This evil fascist, thank God we're safe because the ruling party in the legislature, the National Guard, and the entire media apparatus are all united together to stop this fascist from getting power, right? Thank God for our security services, for the majority in the legislature, and for the media. House Democrats have voted to expel Greene from Congress, or they were pushing to vote to expel her from Congress. Let me just read the article. So the article's on Forbes. So 72 House Democrats, so 1/3 of them, including AOC and Debbie Wasserman Schultz and such, introduced a resolution. However, it didn't pass, right? It's not as if Marjorie Taylor Greene is not going anywhere. But this is where we're at. Actually, Nancy Pelosi just sort of shot it down and said it was a waste of time. There's really not much, that's it. There's other far more disturbing news. Dan, do you have any thoughts on that, first of all?
I mean, obviously she continues to be the Iron Lady of the House of Representatives. This woman's been in this position for like a week, and 1/3 of them are trying to get rid of her when she has no power, she has no committee appointments. You would think, if anything, they would love to have her there as a foil that they can point to and say, the Republicans, they're the kind of party that has this lady that questioned 9/11 and called for the execution of Nancy Pelosi. But instead, they seem intent on getting rid of her, which just tells you that she must stay.
Also, another case of conservative brain rot. Marjorie Taylor Greene tweets out, there is nothing more threatening to Democrats than strong Republican women. Democrats are trying to overturn the will of the people who voted for both myself and Miller Meeks. House Democrats have declared war on House Republican women. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I don't think you understand your situation. They've already called you an anti-Semite. You're trying to do this liberal thing where it's like, well, I'm a woman and you're attacking me for being a woman and that makes you sexist. But that's not how the stack works, dear. That's not how this goes. One, I would say it's almost disqualifying. It's incredibly unbecoming of any conservative to start crying about sexism or racism when members of the opposition party try to cancel them. For you to actually engage in that back and forth, somebody's like, you're a racist. Yeah, well, you're a something-ist. Frankly, that's grounds for impeachment, right? Marjorie Taylor Greene is very lucky that we spent half of last episode talking about how amazing she was. Otherwise, I would just write her off immediately. Well, but the thing is, of course, all conservatives engage in this nonsense, including Gina Carano, right? So, whatever. Conservatives should not do this. It is...
Anyway.
It is disgusting. But that's not the most obscene thing involving Marjorie Taylor Greene that's happened. So, Marjorie Taylor Greene, at one point, first, Dan, do you have anything to say about that?
No, not really. You pretty much said it all.
All right. Okay, here's the big one. Dan's drinking water. He's not even looking at things, he's just chilling as I go off. At one point, Marjorie Taylor Greene referred to Guam as if it were a foreign country. I don't remember why she said it or in what context, but she simply called Guam a foreign land. What she has forgotten is, in fact, that the United States is one of the most vicious occupying powers in the history of the world, and so it actually conquered Guam 150 years ago and then treats it as a territory. So, guess what the reaction was to Marjorie Taylor Greene calling Guam a foreign land, Dan?
What was it?
The Guam National Guard paid her a visit. A bunch of men in uniform just showed up outside her office and just stood there. They just stood outside her office, took pictures, and then hassled her aides for a while, wondering, hey, when is Marjorie Taylor Greene going to get back? Because when I think of stopping fascism, there's nothing like a bunch of uniformed soldiers showing up at a legislator's office and just intimidating her staff. What do you think, Dan?
I think it's important that we fight against fascism in this country.
Yes. Thank God for the men and women of the Guam National Guard. Oh, it's very important to emphasize the men and women of the Guam National Guard for showing up to Capitol Hill to educate this congressperson.
Marcel, do you think it's possible? I might be on I might be onto something here. I don't know. This could be nothing. This could be big. Do you think it's possible that Democrats are, in a sense, the real fascists?
Possible, but if it were, I wouldn't say it. That's really all the Marjorie Taylor Greene news. I could rant on this for a few minutes, but we want to.
Could I add a story?
Sure, go for it.
Just not moving it forward. I feel like you're probably going to want to wait till the next episode, but I feel like we must address this because it just happened. Our dear leader had his first press conference.
Oh, yes.
And it went stunningly well for us as podcast hosts.
Oh, wait, this happened literally a few minutes ago now?
No, it happened yesterday.
Oh, okay. Yes. So Joe Biden
had a press conference. You could probably tell by my cadence there that I was putting air quotes around that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was inaugurated in mid-January. It is now late March. So he went 2 full months as president of the United States of America without holding a press conference. And he did just yesterday before we recorded this. And it was funny. I saw the pictures. He has a little visual guide to who the White House press corps are.
Oh my gosh. So when I was watching this, before I knew about this, we all knew about it before. It's like that BBC story. Before we actually got the information, we knew this. But I was remembering Trump's press conferences where he would just point at people and go, yeah, you. No, not you. You. Whatever. Biden would look down at his table, at the rostrum, and then say, Marcel, like he was reading a name, which was strange because I don't remember anyone ever doing that. They usually just look at someone in the eye and point at them. And I was going, why isn't he pointing at people? Why is he reading their names? Obviously, because he has a list of who's going to ask the questions in what order. So that way he has his cards in the right order so that he doesn't even have to hear the question. Because he knows I go to number 4, that's Marcel, and then I go to sheet number 4. So you could have stood up and gone off script and said, what are your thoughts on the Suez Canal? And he would have said, so about the filibuster, I think, and then you actually see the sheet where he has a Facebook of the pictures of their headshot with their name And then there's a number written in Sharpie, like number 1, Marcel, number 2 is Dan, so he knows who he's going to call on. And then, of course, most of them aren't going to be called on, but he knows ahead of time. And then and then we also saw the photo of his cheat sheets that say the president on the top, so he knows who he is. And then there was the famous moment that I think we might play at the beginning of this episode where he tries to go off script, and he just
come on, man.
It's clear when he gets to the phrase near and dear, you can see he mentally says, I don't know where I was or where I'm going. And then he doesn't know how to get out of it. And he goes, anyway, like he was about to vomit. Like he was like he had just been pounding liquor for 2 hours and was just at the end of his rope. And there's this little nervous chuckle from like 2 people in the press corps. And you can almost hear people going, what the fuck? And then he just goes on to the next thing.
Daddy, the Emperor has no short-term memory.
Yeah, it was literally, we're days away from Joe Biden just shuffling around the White House lawn in an open bathrobe. And then the media is going to pretend that this always happens. This is what they all do. This is normal.
Our next topic. The Department of Defense has really been, they've really been something.
I just real quick though, I just want to remind people. Tim Apple was grounds for impeachment. Covfefe was grounds for 25th Amendment. Tim Apple, Covfefe, these were 25th Amendment things. And now, somebody is clearly in some sort of cognitive decline, and it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. So we have another article, this one out of the Gray Zone, written by Gareth Porter. So we discussed in a previous episode, Trump's special envoy to Syria tricked that dumb old orange man by secretly hiding United States troops in Syria in direct contravention of the troop drawdown that he ordered. We talked about that one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Department of Defense has been at it again. This time, they've been actively working. Military leadership of the United States, our professional volunteer military, has been actively working to subvert the peace deal that the civilian head of the military, the president, created in order to remove troops from Afghanistan. As we've discussed how the envoy to Syria worked to actively subvert Trump's withdrawal from Syria by stationing troops in secret, mainly by taking U.S. forces in the Department of Defense and then designating them as CIA assets, so that instead of having 5,000 troops in Syria, we had 500 troops in Syria and then 5,000 CIA American advisors. The Department of Defense has been running a similar scam on that dumb old orange man, Trump, by violating the terms of the peace deal that he agreed to with the Taliban as part of his withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Which, by the way, to this day, this is among the kinds of things that are used as a point of why Nixon is one of the most uniquely evil people in history, is that he supposedly sabotaged the peace talks in Vietnam. And this is, of course, the height of evil. But now it is the height of virtue.
Yes, and the basic way in which this worked was part of the negotiations themselves was a reduction in violence. And what the Taliban and the United States forces agreed to was that neither of them would attack stationary targets belonging to the other. So the Taliban would cease all attacks on U.S. bases, on Afghan National Army bases and police forces and cities, right? However, they agreed that any patrols into the other's territory, de facto territory, would be fair game. So what the Department of Defense started doing was encouraging Afghan forces to step up their patrols into Taliban-controlled territory and then sending large amounts of U.S. troops in with them, basically to get them shot at by the Taliban, so that they could then say that the Taliban was reneging on the agreement, and so the entire peace deal was null and void. This is an active effort by American military leadership to subvert a peace deal reached by the president, who's a fascist, of course. Fascism is when the civilian head of the military tries to end a war, and then
democracy.
And democracy is when the military leadership violates that and just starts staging provocations to extend it. And the more provocations the military stages, the more democratic it is.